Good evening, everybody. We'll call the work session to order. We are here today to discuss the public safety complex, have a discussion about that and the potential bond issue and what to build, when to build it, and how big and beautiful to build it, or whether to build a tent. So we'll see where this goes. And so thank you, everybody, for being here. It's nice to see everybody. I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I have a brief presentation to start out just to provide some context here with this issue. Also want the council and the public to know that we're joined here this evening in person by the architectural firm of PBK. They're waving right there. As well as by phone with Chris Rowe, who's part of bond counsel with Bryant, Miller, and Olive. So they're here to answer any questions that might not be able to be answered by me or some of our staff. So having said all that, let me just jump right into the presentation. So obviously we're here to talk about public safety. Give you a little bit of history for the community. The council is very well aware of this. When we started this endeavor, it was primarily focused on a police station. And there's some history here that the fact that this police department in Temple Terrace, of which we all have a lot of admiration for, have never had a freestanding police station as far as I understand it. And so there's been a discussion of that for several years. In fact, it was a council priority just several years ago for us to acquire land for a future police station. That's in fact what we did. In 2024, the city acquired a 5-acre parcel at 7911 Harney Road. We paid $1.6 million. In fact, we used the money from the Rollerson Ranch sales proceeds to offset that cost. And as I mentioned, the priority was to find land for a police station, but when we located this piece of property, it was the size of it being 5 acres was conducive, we felt, to potentially being able to house a fire station as well. So it made a lot of sense. The city council in the FY25 budget, you included $200,000 for conceptual design and costing to show what a police station and a possible joint police and fire station complex would look like on the property and how much the financial impact would be to the city. And that's what PBK has done. So let's just focus right now on the police side of the house, so the police facility. So the police department has been here on the third floor of this building in an 11,000 square foot footprint since the late 1970s. And in 1982, this police department had 26 sworn officers and 11 civilian employees, and they served the population of just over 11,000 people. Today, this department has 57 sworn officers and 20 civilian employees, and serves a population of over 28,000 people in the same station footprint. So they haven't moved from the third floor yet. Everything around them has increased in terms of the officers, employees, and obviously the population that they need to serve. The police also, in addition to staffing, have other challenges with space. They have their reserve vehicles, their backup vehicles are located right now in various city parking lots around City Hall. Their SWAT van and their Bearcat is actually stored off-site in the Public Works property. So they're a little bit spread out in the community, and obviously having one centralized headquarters would allow them to bring all those things into a secure, unified position. Now the fire station, when we're going through this exercise, as I mentioned, we had talked about a future fire station to address some of the growth that we've experienced on the east side of the community. And we envisioned that the fire station would be a need at some point in the future. And now we're here at this moment where we have this opportunity again to develop both at the same time. The issue, or the benefit of developing both at the same time would be obviously to be a cost savings, because you have one mobilization. You don't disrupt the facilities. If you have a police station built first, you're disrupting their operations. So there's definitely some efficiency from doing that. But we did ask the fire chief and his team to give us the data. Do we build this now? Do we build this in the future? So the fire department provided a report, which I shared with the council a couple of weeks ago. And it noted that in the 90th percentile response bracket for the area that would be served by a future fire station 3, that their calls are averaging 8 minutes and 29 seconds. Now the benchmark, we have a class 1 fire department. So their benchmarks are probably more aggressive than other fire departments who aren't class 1. And our benchmark is 6 minutes and 40 seconds for that first piece of apparatus to arrive at your house after you call 911. So obviously 8 minutes and 29 seconds is not meeting that benchmark. In fact, If there were not a fire station built by 2035, the department projects that that could rise to 10 to 12 minutes. And I've just lost the video feed. Brian? Okay, I heard an O. Okay, that's a good O, I guess. Okay.
It's an IT term.
So, and then on the east part of town, one of the additional drivers is that industrial and warehouse growth we've had, which is great. Amazon, the Veterans Administration Medical Clinic, they're great in terms of taxpayers to the community, and they're also in terms of the jobs they provide to our community. But they are taxing the resources of the fire department. In fact, 9.4% of all the calls, EMS calls, that would be part of that Station 3 area are being driven just by those two buildings. So, knowing all that, it sounds like we should be thinking about a fire station. And the chief and I have had many conversations about how do you staff this, right? There could be some operational costs as well. Chief Kemp's idea, I think, is a novel idea, which would be to move one of our rescue ambulances over to the third fire station with our existing staffing. So today, we have 3 rescue ambulances. We have 1 stationed at Station 2 in the northern part of the city, and we have 2 stationed at Station 1. So again, the concept here would be to move one of those 2 from Station 1 over to Station 3, no additional staffing. And I think that's a good idea, and that would work, I think, for a while. I believe over time, as there'd be more development and more growth in that area, you'd probably, or a future council, not this council, but a future council would probably have to consider funding the addition of firefighters for a full fire suppression unit. So we've looked at that as well, and that would be the addition of potentially 12 new firefighter and paramedics to be consistent with the way the fire department's response methodology is. So if you were to do that, or a future council was to do that, based on today's costing for salaries, that would be an additional $1.3 million on an annual basis to the city's operating budget. But again, that would be several years out at this point. I don't foresee that happening anywhere in the near future. If you think about, even if you were to say yes tonight to build both of these facilities, by the time you even open the facility after construction, you're probably looking at 2030. And so that would still be some time before this issue became salient. If the future council were to consider additional funding, there are federal grants that offset some of those initial costs. They're called the SAFER grants. So the way SAFER grants work is that in the first 2 years, they're 3-year grants. The first 2 years, there's a 75% cost being borne by the federal government, and the last year it's 35% borne by the federal government. So it helps communities basically mitigate for some of that shock, that initial shock of funding several firefighter positions, something that I used in my last community as well. So obviously a tool that we could consider if we needed to, but then that would be several years down the road. Now, as I was mentioning, we were talking about these response areas for Station 3. So we have a chart here, and I apologize. It's in color, but I'll try and explain it, because I know that may be challenging.
I'm good.
Okay. So there's, Station 1 is in green. Station 1 is the bulk of the city. So everything from the Tampa border roughly to the river, and then just a little bit beyond Fowler as well on the western end. Station 2 is in the pink or the salmon color, primarily telecom, in the area to the very northeast part of the city. And then Station 3, the proposed area, is in blue, and that would be everything east of the river and most of everything south of Fowler Avenue as well. Now, when we hired PBK to do the concepts, as I may have mentioned, we hired them to basically show us a concept that would show only a police station, and a rendering and site plan that would show also a joint police and fire station. So this is what you're seeing on the screen right now is a police department only concept. So this has a police station that's 3 stories, 33,000 square feet, has a secure parking area for the PD fleet, and that's also important because modern stations today, everything's behind a gate and a fence for the security, not just of the vehicles, but also for the officers. Again, if you know, these folks are going out every day interacting with people, may not be at their happiest moments, and then they're going back to their cars in the middle of the night, things like that. So it's nice to have a secure facility. This facility would also have an indoor firing range, which is, if you look at the picture to the right, on that picture to the right, the very top left of it, you'll see that what looks like a box, a rectangular box. That's the indoor firing range. Would also have a garage for their specialized vehicles, that SWAT van, Bearcat, and the command post. That garage is located in that picture to the right, the very top of the site plan in the back corner. Obviously, the other alternative was to look at the joint facility. So here we have a site plan that shows both a police station and a fire station. Fire Station 3 would be projected to be 10,000 square feet, a one-story building. It would have 2 bays, and there'd be a drive-through. So in essence, what you see here on this site plan, if you look up at the top, you see Harney Road. You see the driveway entrance to the left. So the apparatus would come in through that driveway. They'd drive around the site, and they'd enter through the back of the fire station, which is on the right side of that site plan. And they'd exit, obviously, through the other end of the fire station. That's a very efficient way to build a fire station. This facility would also have a hot, warm, and cold contamination control zone. We'd have an isolated, self-contained breathing apparatus fill station for the tanks. We'd also have an outdoor training area, which you can see on the site plan. It's at the bottom right of the site plan. Those would be sort of those Connex boxes, those shipping container type things that they use for simulations and in their training. And one of the more important aspects is if you do this joint facility with the police department, the fire department would be able to share training and conference rooms. So they basically walk across the little courtyard, and there would be conference rooms and training spaces that they would use jointly with the police department. And whether they paint it blue or red, it's up to, I think that's up to the architects to figure out. But I know that concern has been raised already. So this is an aerial of the facilities, the joint police and fire station facility. So again, you see here Harney Road would be on the bottom right. There's a retention pond that would be constructed here to address stormwater. There's also stormwater underground vaults that would be used for stormwater retention on the site. And you see everything we just talked about. This is a ground level view of the police and fire stations. So let's talk about the project costs. So these costs here are exclusive of financing expenses. Whenever you go out to the bond market, you go out for a bank loan, there's always some financing costs and things like that, which we're going to talk about outside of this chart. So right now, this is pretty much designing it and building it and putting furniture in it. So what PBK did is they actually went out to 3 different cost estimators to try and find a good range of pricing to get us a solid estimate that would be conservative but realistic. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see from the slide, there are ranges for each of these elements. I'm just going to read you the top number, again, to be ultra conservative, again, giving you the worst case scenario. So I'm going to start with the police station. So construction of the police station estimated at a top end of $31 million. Now that is a significant number, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that includes the majority of the site development costs. Because if council, if you choose to just build a police station and leave a fire station for later on, you want to make sure the site has proper stormwater retention for a future fire station, that all the other infrastructure is there to accommodate future fire stations. So all of that is being borne by the police station cost estimate here. Soft costs, this would be design and engineering, permitting, are estimated at $2.6 million. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment, approximately $1 million, for an estimated cost of $34.6 million, again on the top end. On the fire station, we're looking at a cost of $9.7 million. Soft costs, about $824,500. Furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, approximately $200,000, to add up to about $10.7 million, again on the top end. So how do we pay for this? As I've mentioned in the past to the council, my recommendation would be to seek a general obligation bond. A GO bond is, in my estimation, the least impactful in operations, because this is something that's very transparent. The voters decide that this is something they want to financially support, so they vote for this, and that would be a separate millage rate on the tax bill. So it wouldn't impact the city's operational millage, because if we had to support this type of debt service, it would be a significant fiscal strain on operations. So this keeps it aside. And again, it was something the voters decided. A GO bond is backed by the full faith and credit, so it doesn't take collateral. It's not looking at assets. It's the full faith and credit of your taxing power here. Also want to make it very clear that the funds for a GO bond cannot be used for any other purpose aside from what's in the bond question. So if it's a bond question that says you want to build a police and fire station, you can't use it to build a park. You can't use it for operations. You have to use it for what it was specified for in the bond. And if the project doesn't happen, the money isn't spent. So for example, if you decide you want to do this and we move forward and the bond is successfully voted on, but then we get struck with some sort of catastrophe, like a pandemic or some event of that nature, just because the bond's been approved by the voters doesn't mean it's been issued yet. And if you never issue the bond, or if you decide to issue it on a smaller scale, et cetera, the public is only responsible for what's actually been issued and what you're actually going to spend it on, not for, an artificial number. So that fiscal impact, so as I mentioned, the police station, $34.6 million, fire department, $10.7 million. Underwriting, legal costs, financial advising, rating agency, all those costs are bundled into about 1% to 2% of the total. So just those three line items alone would probably add to about $46.3 to $46.5 million. When you're looking at a bond, upon advice we've had from our financial advisor as well as bond counsel, one of the things you want to be cognizant of is that this is a lengthy process. So you're going to start now with an idea of what that number is going to be. By the time you actually break ground, it could be a year, 2 years later. In our case, it probably would be 2 years later. So because of that, there's a suggestion. You want to make sure you have enough cushion in there that if there's inflation in construction, of which there has been the last several years, that you want to have a not to exceed number that accommodates that inflation. So the suggestion here is to have a not to exceed bond amount of $50 million. Again, that doesn't mean you spend $50 million. You could spend $40 million, but it's just a not to exceed amount, because if you find yourself in a situation where you did have inflation, you wouldn't have the flexibility to address it through the bond anymore. You'd have to figure out a different way to do that. In terms of what the millage impact would be if we pursue a 30-year bond, which would be our recommendation, and you did it today. So today, if you did a bond, you'd probably get a rate of between 4.25 and 4.5%. That's what our financial advisor said based on our community. He's unable to predict a year from now what the rates will be. I assume that the rates are going to go down. He's not as certain. So what I provided here is a range between an interest rate of 4% and an interest rate of 4.75%. Based on those ranges and at a 30-year bond, you're looking at millage of 0.90 to 0.98 mils for anyone in this community in terms of repaying this debt. So if there were a home that were assessed at $250,000, the impact would be projected to be in the range of $225 to $245 annually over this 30-year period. Now, to help the voters understand this issue, it's important that we do a significant amount of education. Under Florida law, the city can educate, but we can't advocate for a bond issue, particularly once it's been voted to be on the ballot by the council. But our city's marketing communications team, they're gearing up to work, assuming council gives us the green light tonight, to work with executive, the police department, and the fire department on materials for presentations, town halls. We'd have info tables at all our city events. We could do website information, social media. We collaborate with different community groups like Rotary, the Women's Club, et cetera, Chamber. We could even do mailers. However, the mailers, as I'm sure bond council, well, I know they've told us before, they'll tell us again, once you have the bond resolution voted on, which you have to, the bond ordinance in our case, which you'd have to do, then you can't really do that anymore. But prior to, you probably could. So there's a wealth of information that we could get out to our community. This slide actually just includes some logos from other Florida communities that have recently gone through their GO bond process, help understand sort of how they've done it. So let's talk about some of the referendum ballot options. So there's three options here. If council wishes to pursue this project and you want to do a GO bond, you could look to put this question on the general election ballot of November 3rd of this year. Obviously, the general election will draw the largest pool of voters. However, there is somewhat of a downside, is that it's going to be a pretty packed ballot. There are going to be other ballot initiatives, other candidacies, et cetera, so our item will be mired in that mix. There will probably be also items based on the anti-property tax constitutional amendments that the legislature is discussing. We don't know if there'll be one, two, or more, or none. So that could also be on the ballot. In terms of costs, really the only costs are legal ads that we are required to do as part of this process. The deadline, if the council wishes to put this on the general election ballot, would be August 18th. Second option is the primary election, which will be held this year on August 18th. Typically, a primary draws more of the sort of dedicated, more informed, locally focused voters. This if we did the bond referendum, on that ballot, it would be likely to be more prominent, less items. The supervisor of elections has already told us that the general will probably be very crowded. So they suggested that, if we want to consider the primary, that may be a better alternative. Obviously, the cost would be the same for legal ads. The deadline for the ballot, if we choose the primary, is June 8th. And then we have the option of a special election in 2027. If that were the case, that would obviously be, at least right now, ostensibly a single issue ballot just for our city's GO bond referendum. And there would be a charge. The supervisor of elections would charge us $15,000 to hold that election. And the deadline for that ballot would be determined by when we decided to actually move forward with this issue. Now, what we've done is gone ahead and suggested the primary, just to give you an idea of the schedule here. If you chose the primary, it obviously would be the most aggressive schedule for this effort. So you see here, this was actually put together by bond counsel, so I want to thank Mr. Rowe, who's on the call. He put this together. I haven't included all the elements of the schedule. I just included the ones that were salient to the city council. So tonight, what we would ask this afternoon in the council meeting would be a decision on the bond scope. In other words, do you want to do a GO bond, and what do you want to do it for, police and fire combined, or just police? And which ballot would you like us to pursue? If you do that tonight, then April 7th and 21st, we'd have the readings of the referendum ordinance. By May 1st, we'd have the referendum ordinance forwarded to the supervisor of elections. By May 29th, we'd have the translation of that referendum and the publication of notice. The translation is required by the supervisor of elections. It has to be translated into Spanish. By June 8th, we'd have that translated ballot to the supervisor of elections, and then we'd have the election on August 18th. Now, that's everything leading up to the election. After the election, assuming the bond is approved, there's still various steps and months that still are timeframes that we have to meet. So the results of the referendum would be presented to City Council on September 1st. There'd be adoption of an authorizing resolution to move forward. Then by December 15th, there'd be adoption of a supplemental bond resolution approving the details of the bond issuance. And then we would look to issue the bond in the first quarter of calendar year 2027. And then we would look to secure a design engineering contract for your approval, also in that first quarter, 27. And then construction, realistically, I see construction starting in 2028 and running for about 18 months, perhaps a little longer. So it would take us to late 29, perhaps or early 2030. So again, just to reiterate tonight, what we'll be seeking, some recommendations from the workshop and then action at the council meeting is, again, what would you like us to do? Police station, joint facility, GO bond, and which referendum, which ballot, I should say. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. B. So, council, it seems like it might be a good way to move forward is to start with questions for staff and then move into discussion afterwards so we don't get tangled up and not get anywhere. So are there questions for Mr. B? I'm sure there probably are. So Councilmember Fernandez.
Okay, so my question has to do with timing. One is, if we were to choose the primary ballot, would we realistically have enough time to actually get the information to voters? I don't know the exact science, but you have to see something 7 times before you really absorb it. So it wouldn't make sense to choose the primary ballot over the general if we really can't get the information out widely and consistently enough.
So definitely the primary ballot is the more aggressive schedule. I'm confident that we can meet that. So if you think about it, today is February 3rd. If the council says tonight, go with the primary, tomorrow we'd start to convene our team. Actually, I already sent out a note to the team preemptively just saying, look, if we do the primary, we have to get these steps, and they have the schedule that the bond council gave you, which I shared with the council last week as well. So we're first week of February. The election would be third week of August. So I feel like we have still a sufficient amount of time there. Obviously, it's more compressed. But if you think about our big events where we'd have information disseminated as well, we still have time to hit all those events largely, not Winter Wonderland, but that would be too late anyway. But all the other events, the 4th of July, the Arts Fest, the Brew Fest, all these things, we'd have a presence there as well, in addition to any other publications and materials. I'm sure word of mouth would be an important element as well in this community our size that has, again, a high regard for our police and fire officers. I'm sure that would help. But obviously, it is the more aggressive chronology. But there's a reason for that because, again, you have to weigh the pros and cons. The general election ballot being as crowded as it may be, is it worth taking the risk that the shorter time frame may actually provide you with a little bit more exposure for this issue?
And then my other question for staff is annexation. And we've discussed annexation, obviously for years and years and years. But what is the thought process because this Station 3, obviously that's the area where we have annexation available to us. And if the faster we add an annex, the more that spot that is needed. But do we have any sort of concrete annexation plan that we're going to try to pursue in the near future?
Right now, in terms of a proactive plan, we've had discussions about it. I wouldn't sit here and say we have a concrete plan. We are getting requests for annexation, additional annexation. In fact, we have a property that's on the other side of 301. So now we'd be jumping 301 potentially down in the industrial area. They're having discussions with our community development staff through our DRC, and they're talking about being annexed. We also know, for example, down at the Rollerson Ranch property, which Dr. Patel and his team bought, if they develop down there, so there'll be new tax base down there. And also that's an area that's going to be a challenge for fire department to respond to, again, because of where it's located, sort of the outer extreme. So there are pieces that have been coming into the community. I think if you're going to ask me right now where I think we should annex, I think the area directly across the street from this police station, that Tampa Commerce Park, which is sort of the light warehouses, industrial warehouses, that's an area that is, in my mind, sort of an enclave that we should look to annex. I think at the northern end of the city, there's what I call a donut hole, where these apartments, where Douglas Grand apartments and other apartments have been built, that is completely encircled by the city. So that might be an area also that would make sense for us to look to annex, because it's already serviced. Wouldn't be serviced by Fire Station 3, if that's something you wish to pursue, but it'd be serviced by Fire Station 2, which is almost across the street from it.
Okay, so right now, the area that Fire Station 1 primarily serves is completely built out. There's really not a lot of room for any kind of development there. So we don't necessarily foresee a staff, without Station 3, we might have to increase staff at Station 1 just to have people available to run the calls to Station 3. With Station 3, would we see any in need for increase in staff at Station 1, or would that stay a fairly fixed?
So my understanding, it would stay fairly fixed in Station 1, as you've identified. Right now, the challenge is not really the staffing, and the chief can jump up and correct me if I get it wrong. I think it's just the way the stations are distributed, where the areas are distributed. The way our community is growing, it's growing largely to that eastern side. And our main station that does probably 85% of our calls is located, pretty much at the very western end of our community. So that's the biggest challenge, is trying to just geographically distribute the ability to respond. And that's why the station is more important, I think, than any staffing consideration. I think that's why the chief suggested we'll take our existing staff and move it, because we really need to distribute these resources better than they currently are.
Okay, so if we were to do both buildings at the same time, would it also make sense to make that, if the police and fire were both there at the same time, would it also make sense to make that basically the hardened communications building with both of those agencies there versus what we've been doing to Station 1 to make it our EEOC or emergency operations? And have we thought of that to incorporate that into that space?
So I guess you mentioned that, because Chief told me that tomorrow, still tomorrow? Okay. Tomorrow, we're breaking ground, if you will, on the EOC, so we're starting to clear the site. So the new EOC, next to Fire Station 1, will be a hardened facility, and that EOC is where we are going to move the 911 communications center to, the primary, so that we'll move from City Hall. It'll be moved there. And it's been programmed, the space has been programmed to accommodate that. And we did that because we had the bird in hand. We had an EOC, we had funding, and so that project started, and we wanted to make sure we can get that emergency dispatch out of this building, which is not hardened, and move it there. So they're already doing that. The new police and fire station, we did not program the space to have a full, dispatch center because we had the other EOC option already. Will they have some accommodations for a backup facility? Yes, but it's not going to be the primary EOC, not primary dispatch center.
Okay.
Councilmember Chambers?
Sure, thank you. To your, the two buildings at the same time, some question. So if we go out on a bond for the entire amount, do we have to build both at the same time? Or could the fire station be 1 year later? Just in the funding?
So you could build it later in that scenario. I think 1 year later, you could do that. From a bonding perspective, I don't believe there'd be any issue with that. In fact, bond counsel, Mr. Draper, when he was here, he talked about you could phase it. I think if you spread it out beyond a certain amount of time, it'd be a little tough to pull off because pricing would have changed and there'd probably some legal questions to address, but I think 1 year would be fine. But if you did that, I don't know if you'd actually meet the goal of doing it together at the same time is you save money because you do everything. The contractor is there and they're mobilized on site. Mobilization is a big component of their cost typically. So you'd be able to do it and you wouldn't disrupt the police department. So I'm not sure if doing it a year later would really help the project. But you could do it with the bond. To your primary question, yes, legally, I believe you can do it. And if bond counsel feels differently, I'm sure they'll chime in.
Okay, so that leads me to the second one, which you touched on. So if we were to do the fire station a year or two later, you would increase the cost of construction because you're not doing it at the same time, correct?
Yes.
And plus the inflation, I'm sure things would go up. So
Yes.
that you have that and the disruption of the police. But but you would also save some operating costs of the electricity to run the building, insurance costs to insure a building that's there, correct? So there would be some cost savings moving it a little later. And I'm sure the insurance cost is nowhere the savings that you would get from building at the same time.
Yeah, in fact, I think in the memory serves in the report that Chief Kemp provided the council, I want to say it was $36,000 was the cost to the annual operating costs.
3638.
Yeah, 38,000 the annual operating costs for the fire, included every element in there, electricity, fire insurance, things like that. So
Okay.
I think the mobilization costs and inflation
Far
costs would be far outweigh that. Yes.
And my last question. So you mentioned immediately we could move Rescue 3. I don't know what you call it, Rescue 3? Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you could move Rescue 3 and I would assume the 2 EMT paramedics.
Two firefighter paramedics, yeah.
Right. So they would be the only occupants in that building 24 hours in the same shifts, so 3 shifts?
Correct.
Okay, they just would move.
That's
Okay.
permanent.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Vice Mayor. I had, my questions have been answered so far, but I do have commentary when it comes time for that.
Councilmember Kravitz?
Mr. Baiya, may I direct a couple of questions to the representatives from the fire department?
Sure, absolutely. Chief Kemp?
How's it going? I was just wondering if you could, going into the two-minute difference between building the third fire station versus not doing it going forward, can you go into some of the possible scenarios, for example, for cardiac arrest or what it would mean for a building if a fire department vehicle were to arrive 6 minutes in versus 8 minutes and some change?
Well, I think certainly everybody in our business understands, and I think the police and those that have been affected in the community understand what seconds mean to life-saving. After about 6 minutes, your ability to sustain brain function with no oxygen starts to deteriorate rapidly. Anywhere from 7, 8, 9 minutes, you're usually brain dead at that point. So obviously, when we've done our accreditation process and we've tried to figure out and talking to other agencies, obviously the best case scenario is to get there within a minute or 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, and that's just almost no community is able to do that. But the quicker you can get to a patient and get oxygen, start CPR, and defibrillate if they need to, or if they need Narcan because they have an overdose, the better off you are. That area is an industrial area, and our biggest, and some of the stuff down there, they have oxygen, they have different chemicals. It's one of our high risk areas, and that area has the longest response time. So once a fire starts, on the average, that would be the exception because of the accelerants that it has. But on your average single family home, every 60 seconds the fire doubles. So not only to be able to put a fire out quickly, you want to get there as quickly as possible, but also for firefighter safety. You want to get in there before you start seeing structural damage and the ability to have a collapse. So not only on the EMS side is it very important to get there early, certainly on the fire side as well.
Thank you very much. That was my only
Yes, sir.
question.
Okay, so we're moving into discussion. I do want to remind everybody to be mindful of the time, so if you can kind of distill your thoughts into a organized manner. So we'll start back down and work down if that's okay. Councilmember
Okay,
Fernandez.
so I have a couple monetary questions that are more maybe for the bond council. But if the city were able to secure grants in the future, or maybe in the short-term future, that might offset some of the cost of building this. For example, for the equipment or just any kind of public safety, is there an ability to pay off any of the bonds early? And then my other question about this is that how do we handle the millage rate? Is that something that we would set every year, or is that something that's set in the bond ordinance itself? Because, for example, typically our valuations have increased over time. So in order to generate the funds to repay the bond on the required schedule, we might not need the same millage rate year after year. And then secondly, if we add or annex property, we've now increased the tax base, and we might not need the same millage rate year after year.
Correct. So are those your questions? Yes. Okay. So I can answer the last one, and the other ones I will defer to the bond council. The last question, you're correct. So the millage rate that I read out, the range 0.90 to 0.98, that's year one because that's the valuation that we have today. That you're absolutely correct. So we assume, I believe actually the financial advisor is assuming a conservative 2% growth a year in our valuation. Again, not accounting for massive annexations or anything like that. So that's a conservative number. And you would see the millage rate decreasing based on that. So every time that you precisely hit it, as the value increases, the millage rate decreases. You still have to have the same amount of money to pay the debt service, but the rate itself will change depending on the value. And you're correct, if we annexed it, that change would be even more dramatic.
Okay. So then my question has to do with early payoff. Is there any provision that if we don't use all the funds, I know we don't issue those bonds to begin with, but if we do issue them and somehow we get additional revenue from other sources, can we pay the bond off early? Bonds.
Mr. Rhodes, did you hear that question?
Yes, sir, I did hear that question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we have you.
Very good. So your ability to prepay the bonds will depend in some measure on how the bonds are structured. Typically, with a bond issue of the size discussed neighborhood of $50 million. If you did that all at once, you would typically borrow through what's known as a publicly offered transaction. You would work with an underwriter to basically act as an intermediary between the city and the investment community to issue the bonds in that dollar amount, and the bonds would be publicly offered and available for resale on the bond markets. For publicly offered transactions, there is typically a period of time following the issuance during which your ability to prepay is somewhat limited, if it exists at all. The so-called 10-year call period. Basically, for the first 10 years, your ability to prepay is generally limited. Now, there are exceptions to that. One exception is when you expect to have some sort of a grant from the state or legislative appropriation of any nature where you feel some degree of certainty that that money will come. Then you can structure the bonds to allow you to make sort of an extraordinary payment solely from the proceeds of that type of grant if those monies materialize during the first 5, 10, et cetera, years of the bond issue. The rub for that, though, is you may end up for that portion of the debt paying a little bit more in the way of interest to compensate the lender, the bondholder, for the risk involved, knowing that he or she may not enjoy that interest for the full 10 years. They may be paid off within 2 or 3 years if the grant monies do come through. These are the types of questions when we go to structure the bonds that the financial advisor would be particularly well suited to address. But that's generally the basics of how it would work.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chambers.
My comments, I would like to see us go for both buildings now and at the primary election.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
For as long as I've been around here, PD has been looking for their own facility once FDLE left, and they're just too big. For at least the last 10 to 15 years, the accreditation people have said that if we're not careful and don't come up with an additional fire station 3 sometime soon, we could jeopardize our class 1 accreditation. I know I've used you guys. Minutes count. And luckily it didn't matter with me, but I know others it well could have. So to go to even being at 8 minutes is a scary number, but to go anything beyond that is unconscionable. I too support both buildings, same time, do the bond issue the way it's presented, go forward with it. And I too do like the primary because the general election is going to be very, very crowded. There's going to be a lot of noise going on that we're going to lose our message in the process. So I do support put them both together, get the GO bond and go forward with it. We owe future councils, future residents. We're planning for the next 30 years. Now's the time we have to do that.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Well, first of all, I agree with what everyone else has said up to now. I just have one point to make, which is the difference between a Class 1 rating and a Class 2 rating also impacts people's homeowner insurance. So there may be a cost involved in voting for this bond issue, but if you decide to not vote for the bond issue, there will also possibly be a cost if we lose our Class 1 rating and become Class 2. It could be anywhere from $100 to $150 for a $250,000 home, roughly. So that's just something to bear in mind. And also, I would point out, we shouldn't overestimate how much additional bandwidth we'll be able to get by doing the bond issue referendum in the general election, because as we move closer and closer to the general election, voters have more and more issues that they're tuning into. So the amount of attention that they can give to this bond issue will be competing with a number of other major topics and also major candidates who will be flooding everyone's mailboxes. So the earlier we can do this, I think the clearer the field will be. So for that reason, I also think primary is the way to go. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I was skeptical at first of the Fire Station 3 concept because I hadn't seen any data, and I was really waiting for some data to come in to see whether or not the data reflected that. I believe it does. I think the analysis was very well done. I had a few follow-up questions that I was able to get to dig a little deeper on some of the analysis. And I fully support doing both now, but not just because I love the fire department, but I think this is a good way for our city to wade into this and spread the cost of this over a period of years, as opposed to waking up one morning in 2032 or whenever and saying, gee whiz, now we're at 8 minutes, we got to do something here really quick. Now we've got to build what is going, at that point would be a $20 million fire station instead of 10. And it's going to take 3 years to get that done. And then we have to hire up and buy a new fire truck and all. At this way, we build a building, we move existing equipment and staff into the building in 2030, right? We look at the data 2031, 2032, whatever, depending on how much annexation happens, right? And then we say, well, we have the building, we have some of the staff, we need to now buy another fire truck and hire 12 more people in order to make this a fully functioning fire station. So at that point, we've paid down the building. We've been paying on the building for a certain period of time. We've already absorbed a lot of the cost of it. So I was skeptical of this at first, but in looking at the data, I've kind of changed my mind on this. The data seems to support this and helps us spread out the costs. I think this is an example of a city doing a great job of looking into the future and taking this in an intelligent way to accommodate what's going to happen in 2032, 33, 35, whatever it happens. Now, I do want to be clear, at least from my perspective, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, what I wouldn't want to happen is there to be any misunderstanding. I'm supporting this with the idea that in 2030, we're going to just move the fire or the rescue car and the paramedics over there, unless the data supports at that time that we've grown so much that we need to pull the trigger then. But I don't want any confusion. I'm not going to be here, but I don't want to read in the Beacon and that the door opens in 2030 and the fire department says, well, the council back in 2026 is we're going to hire where's the 12 new firefighters in the fire engine? I think a future council needs to look at the data and decide when that decision is appropriate. So I don't want any misunderstanding that that's the decision that we're making tonight, or at least I don't think it is. So I think, and I'm also supportive of putting it on the primary because that, for a whole lot of reasons that have already been stated, that just makes perfect sense. So, okay, what do you now we're going to vote on this in the council meeting in about a little later on.
Correct, I believe it's under council business this evening, so
Yeah.
that's when you could take action.
Yeah, and just for those people in the audience, there will also be public comment when that item's called up at the council meeting. So if you want to stick around, you'll have the ability to provide public input on that. Okay, anything else, council?
Good job, good reports.
Yeah, very good job. Chief, very good job. Carlos, very good job. City manager, very good job. And we did not forget that this story began with the police station, Chief.
Not at all.
And I want the conference room painted blue, by God. Thank you all. We'll see you in 11 minutes. We are adjourned.
Hi, I'm Shannon Long. I'm the Library Assistant Director at the Temple Terrace Public Library. For somebody that hasn't visited the library in a while, I would say that the library has evolved a lot over the last 30 years. The library remains an important place for modern day because it's one of the few places that most of our resources are free. It's one of the only places you can come to use the internet for free and do research, check out books for free. And we have a seed catalog and the Beyond Books lending library where you can check out tools and other things for free so you don't have to purchase them. So yeah, the library definitely saves patrons a lot of money. So the library recently introduced a new logo. It's an open book with the silhouette of a Temple orange. The Temple orange represents some of the history of Temple Terrace. So recent renovations at the library include the new restrooms. We're getting new tile, new flooring, new stalls, new plumbing, pretty much new everything, and we hope that it's a more functional space that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. I think the Temple Terrace Library is the only library in Hillsborough that does the seed catalogs. So the seed catalog, you can check out 4 seed packets a month on your library card. We have a wide variety of seeds, mostly vegetables that you can plant, but we do have a few flowers as well. So for book clubs, we have a contemporary book club for more, the newer novels that have come out. We have one for classics. And then we also have one at night. I think that's more of like scary stories for adults. And then there's a garden club book club. There's a wide variety of different book clubs that you can attend, and you can look for the listings of the dates and times on templeterrace.gov events calendar. So you can find more information about the library on Facebook or Instagram. We have weekly posts of the different events we have going on. We have funny videos that we post with our staff. Come on down to the library and help us celebrate what's next.
Welcome to the February 3rd meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. It's nice to see so many folks out tonight. You must have heard that I was doing the historic fact tonight. You came just to hear that, right? So, man, you put the pressure on me tonight. So I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices. And if you would, please stand if you're able to join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask your blessings upon our meeting tonight. Grant us wisdom as we work to advance the common good of our city. We pray for those who are less fortunate than ourselves, especially those impacted by the recent cold weather. We thank you always for our wonderful employees. Please continue to bless them and keep them safe. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. So for those of you who may not visit us often, we have a tradition for the past few years in Temple Terrace where we start each of our meetings with a fun or interesting or historical fact concerning either our city or the region, and we rotate that duty down the dais, and tonight it falls on me. And so I am going to bend the rules just a little bit because what I want to tell you is a story that really has to do with the Florida State Capitol, so it's not really a Temple Terrace thing. But having been there last week, I was telling this story to somebody who it was their first time at the Capitol, and I thought, you know what, I got to do this next week. I'll just tell them this story. So you're going to get to hear about the Capitol. And so we all know the Capitol's in Tallahassee. It's been in Tallahassee since before the state of Florida was a state, back when it was a territory. And the reason Tallahassee was chosen was because it's halfway between St. Augustine and Pensacola, which were the two big population centers in Florida at the time. It was a 20-day trip to go between those two cities, so they picked Tallahassee, so it was 10 days for everybody to get there. And so it remained still remains in Tallahassee, although there's been several attempts over the years to move the Capitol. And the one I want to tell you about, it's not even the most recent one, is the biggest one that gained the most traction was in the 1960s. And so in the 1960s, the panhandle politicians were struggling very hard to maintain control of the state. They had really dominated state politics and state policy ever since the state was founded, because that's where the old rural core of the state was. And so back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, for about a 30 or 40 year period, they even formed something called the Pork Chop Gang, which was, it was 20 state senators and legislatures that banded together to control the Florida legislature. They had enough votes that you couldn't get anything that they didn't like through the Florida legislature. That pretty much dissolved in 1968 when the Florida Constitution was adopted. But in 1969, something else happened, and that was they were still in the old Capitol building, which is a really cool building. If you haven't been there, it's like $5 to get in. It's really cool. So they were still in the old building, which dates to 1845, and it had been added to and added to and added to and added, but you know, wiring and HVAC, you know, air conditioning, everything was a mess. It was a 150-year-old building, 120 years old. So they were having a discussion about what to do. Some people wanted to build a new Capitol, demolish the old one. Some people wanted to do this, wanted to do that. The old guard, the old Pork Chop Gang people, they were wanting to make sure that it stayed there. They in Tallahassee. There was a progressive senator from Miami named Lee Weisenborn. He was a very progressive Jewish gentleman from Miami that said, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity for us to move the Capitol from Tallahassee, which we should have done 100 years ago or whatever, because now the population in Florida has changed. It's no longer centralized in the northern part of the state. It's more in the peninsula, Miami, Orlando, Tampa. And so he started a campaign to move the capital to several cities were discussed, but Orlando was the one that was settled on. So it started to gain traction. He was actually holding strategy meetings at the Capitol in Tallahassee, getting people on board with this idea. He was drafting language for a joint resolution to introduce in the chambers to get this passed. But the old guard wasn't having any of this, right? They're like, no, you're not moving the Capitol. And as he started to get more and more traction on this, they immediately jumped into action and said, no, we're not doing this. So they passed their own resolution very quickly, funding the construction of a new Capitol right behind where the old one was. And they intentionally funded it at a high level. They wanted to build this magnificent, tall, probably bigger than it needed to be, but this extravagant, beautiful Capitol, so that nobody ever in the future would ever propose to move it again because they invested so much money in it, right? That was part of their rationale. It's like, we want to put so much money into it that we'll put this to rest forever, right? Didn't work. It's been brought up since then. But the new Capitol was funded, started construction in, I think, 72. It was opened in 78 was the first year the legislature met in it. But true to politics, right? There's a plaque on the first floor of the Capitol that is really kind of the epitome of political sarcasm. And I'll show you a picture of the plaque, but it's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek attaboy to Senator Weisenborn, but it's really more of a head slap to him than anything else. And that plaque is still there. Brian, put that plaque up and let me show them. This is the plaque that's there today. Dedicated to Senator Lee Weisenborn, whose valiant effort to move the Capitol to Orlando was the prime motivation for construction of this building. So, yeah. And so it's still there. If you go in, if you've ever been, it's a really cool building. It's probably one of the ugliest Capitol buildings in the country. But I didn't build it, that's just saying. But if you go in the door, the public entrance, and you go right back towards the elevator lobby and then turn right, it's on the wall right near the elevators. And so everybody I see in the Capitol, I take them to that plaque and show them this is the epitome of pettiness, in my opinion. And the interesting thing is both sides of this lay claim to this plaque. His supporters lay claim to it and say, well, yeah, we insisted that they put it there to recognize his efforts, that caused him to build this building. It was his fault that they never would have done it. And the opposition says, you know, we put it there as a head slap to him because we built the, you know, he wanted to go to Orlando. So both sides, even today, kind of take credit for this plaque or look at this plaque with pride. And so it's a big topic of discussion at the Capitol. So anyway, I know, nothing to do with Temple Terrace, I'm sorry, but still an interesting fact, so, okay. Well, thank you for the indulgence there. Next up, which is way better, I promise. Next up is the Employee of the Month for December. Is Everett Meyer? All right, Everett Meyer. Yeah. So GIS Specialist Everett Meyer is being recognized as the Employee of the Month for December. Everett consistently goes above and beyond to support multiple departments. He tackles diverse requests with impressive speed and efficiency, always ensuring the highest quality in his work. His expertise and leadership are invaluable, whether he's generating maps for planning, analyzing data for city operations, or providing critical insights for field teams. Even when faced with numerous citizen requests or concerns, Everett handles each interaction with patience and a positive attitude, making him an outstanding nomination for Employee of the Month. And congratulations from all of us to you, Everett, for being selected as the December Employee of the Month. So, yeah. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for the kind words, Mayor. You know, in my position, I get to work with a lot of different departments in the city, which means I get to work with a lot of really great people. So with that, thank you all.
Thank you.
Right in the middle. All right, 3, 2, 1. Perfect, thank you.
So now I have a favor to ask of you guys. We have a couple people standing. If you have a vacant seat next to you, would you scoot over so that we can free up a couple of seats for the folks who are standing? Thank you very much. There you go, guys. Okay, next we have a presentation of a Temple Terrace Rotary Club donation. Okay, I was wondering who was going to come over. Please tell me somebody's coming.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Carl Ankle, Leisure Services Director. The reason that we're here tonight to talk about this is for a very special young lady from Temple Terrace whose time with us was far too brief. I had the pleasure of working with her when she was a lifeguard at the family complex way back in the 90s. I've thought for the past 2 weeks about what I'm going to say tonight about this, and everything I came up with fell far too short. So I'm going to give it over to friends, family, Rotary Club, whoever else who can do a far better job of this than I would ever be able to do. So,
Thank you, Carl. Hey, Carl does a great job as the Director of Leisure Services in the cities. We're all blessed to have Carl working for us. As a proud graduate of Florida State, my wife and I are and season ticket holders. We're very glad the Capitol is still in Tallahassee, by the way, okay? Okay. 25 years ago, Marcela Martinez, while studying abroad, was run over, tragically killed. Marcela was a graduate from King High School class of 2000. As you'll find out, we'll talk about her a little bit later. She was a very special individual. And shortly after she died, the Rotary Club set up a foundation in her name. And over the past 25 years, we've given dozens of scholarships to deserving students. Today, I represent the Temple Terrace Rotary Club. I'm here to, announce that we're making a minimum $25,000 commitment to the Temple Terrace Recreation Department. That's primarily going to be used to redo the lifeguard room, which I don't know if you ever looked at it lately, but it definitely needs to be redone, okay? And as Carl said, Marcella was a lifeguard. She also learned to swim in Temple Terrace. And the families here, Marcella's parents are both here today, and what we want to do is create a permanent memory for Marcella. And to talk about Marcella a little bit and show you why she was so special, I'm going to introduce her brother, Felipe Martinez, and best friend Stephanie Hall Shaughnessy, to talk a little bit about Marcella. And Rachel's here too, okay? The two sisters are here, okay, with the check, okay? But don't try and cash that.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are we doing? Felipe Martinez. So, yeah, didn't expect to ever be standing in this position right now. But, so no, for us, I mean, we're born and raised here in Temple Terrace off 63rd Street and then moved over to Druid Hills. For us, the rec center was, you know, a part that our community, our friends, we just grew up there and built all these relationships through. For Marcela, really was a big part of her life as well, being that, you know, she was part of the swim team. We learned to swim. Carl was actually one of our lifeguards when we were little kids, teaching us to swim. So she got to work with him as a lifeguard. She was there teaching, doing all these different things. So like Perry mentioned, the scholarship originally started helping students out of King High School. And then we recently realized that we wanted to just do something big and do something for Temple Terrace that gave so much back to us. And part of that is that lifeguard station that we've seen over the years needing a lot of help. And I know that's where we wanted to be able to do this for Temple Terrace. And now I brought along Stephanie too, which is a big part. She was also a big sister to me and my sister's best friend. So
yeah. So my family moved here in 1989. And so I guess not as long as the Martinez's, but the Temple Terrace Rec Center always has been a foundation in this community. And when we think about it, I think it's more than just a structure. It's the people like James and Carl. I think I saw Corey in here, now Tiffany. But you're hiring people who are building friendships. You're providing a place where people can be a part of a team, a part of any kind of clubs they want to. It just offers so many opportunities for people. And opportunities that his sister, myself, so many people from our generation certainly have taken advantage of and continue to. So it's a pretty special opportunity to get to donate a nice sum of money to another group of people and continue on. So, and we really appreciate everything that the Rotary Club of Temple Terrace has done, and especially Perry and managing all this money so that it can be all this money. But it really is a special thing to be able to do. And I would too, if this isn't too much, if you are here for Marcella in some way, shape, or form, can you stand up so we can show that? And this is just the surface. I mean, it truly is just the surface. A lot of people are very excited about this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the check?
Yeah. Carl, would you like this?
So, and the Rotary Club is very glad to be able to do yet another project with the city and with the Recreation Center, that will have a lasting impact on the guards and the community. So we're glad to be a part of everything. Thank you, guys.
We are very happy. Thank you very much. We need to arrange a photograph. So.
We have some of the new generation of lifeguards. I'd like to get them to come up here and part of this picture as well.
If I could have everyone like squeeze in if you can. I know it's tight. All right, 3, 2, 1. And I'm gonna get one from this angle if you want to look this. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
May I say something, Mayor?
Yes, sir, please.
Sorry.
This is my uncle, by the way. He's part of the Rotary Club.
Good evening. Thanks for
Also, yeah, just part of Temple Terrace. So.
Marcella to all of us, and the way I described it in the poem when she passed, it was a rose in the desert. She always brought a smile to all of us, and very nice, kind person. Beautiful soul, and that's what she is. Thank you.
We really can't thank you enough for that. So thank you all. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us tonight. And I'm sure Carl and his team will put that money to good use. And as you can see, we have some young people with us that are following her footsteps. And so you're making a huge impact on their lives. So thank you. Okay, council, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from our January 20th meeting? And if so, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. So, persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. So requests to address the mayor and council are in the back of the chambers on the little table back there. Please complete the forms and give them to the city clerk. I have a number of people already, but if you haven't signed up yet, please complete the forms. So we do have a 30-minute time limit for this section of the meeting. I think we're going to be okay, but at 30 minutes of public comment, we cut that section. We temporarily suspend that section so we can move on. You'll still get to address the council, but we have to finish the council business, and then at the end of the meeting, we'll resume, and we'll stay as long as there's still people that want to address the council. We'll stay all night. So, but this part of the meeting is 30 minutes. We have a 3-minute time limit imposed on all comments from the public. We ask that speakers come to the podium, state your name and city of residence. During public comments on items not on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, the city manager and directors in attendance make note of these items, and all of your comments are taken seriously and will be followed up on. So, Mr. Loeb, you are recognized first, sir.
Charles Loeb, Terrace Park. First of all, I want to welcome you back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
The second thing is I want to list the holidays that are coming up before the next meeting, which would include the Super Bowl, Valentine's Day, and President's Day, and a lot of birthdays in between that I don't have time to mention. There was a magazine called, I want to start with the pickleball first. There's a magazine called Road Scholar, spelled R-O-A-D, that had something about pickleball trips. And I was thinking with the future here in the community that you all, between the stadium opening up and the hotel coming up and Busch Gardens and all, and maybe someday you all will be able to have a pickleball trip if you're still going into that. I'm willing to to leave the information with the city manager if you all are interested in doing that. This, by the way, this magazine called Road Scholar was January 2026. The main topic that I wanted to talk to you about was climate change. The storm that came over through here kind of reminds me of the storm in the movie The Day After Tomorrow. Kind of what was described as a paper as a snow king. We have to do a better job on the environment. I ran across this newspaper article from a paper called El País, or however you pronounce it, and that this was the 10th anniversary of the Paris climate conference. Before that time, they were doing 2.2 increases per year in terms of polluting, and went down to 1.1, but we still got to do even better than that. Let me see if I can say this right. The shorter time The faster we destroy the climate, the less time we have for our scientists to deal with climate change. The longer, the more we're energy efficient and the more we save, of course, the more time the scientists will have to deal with it. It also shows, this chart also shows the effects of degrees since over the course of events, if anybody wants to see this or cares to see this. But finally, again, another little incentive, and that's my electric bill. Over the course of my life, I've never driven a car, never wanted to drive a car. My last two electric bills, I brought my last one over here, was $30.16, and the one before that was $31.05. So it's kind of like an incentive thing for people to keep in mind that it can be done, and we need people to do it. Thank you all, and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Catherine Paler Amaya. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm introducing the City of Temple Terrace tennis team, the Titans.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. You going to tell us a little bit about your team?
Yes.
All right.
Good evening, City Council members. I am Nicholas.
Luke.
Nikhil. Leonardo. Sergio. My friends and I are on the City of Temple Terrace tennis team, and our name is the Temple Terrace Titans. We wanted to inform the City Council about our recent successes. In the fall, 6 of us played for the City of Temple Terrace in the U.S. Tennis Association's junior team tennis program. We played against other local teams like Hunters Green, the Tampa Bay Yacht Country Club, Van Dyke Farms, Avila, and others. We had a great season and came in second place in our Hillsborough County division.
Then in December, 5 members of our team went on to represent the City of Temple Terrace at the U.S. Tennis Association Junior Team State Tournament in Orlando at the United States Tennis Association National Campus. Teams from all around the state of Florida competed, and we placed second in our under 14 age division. Our team placed well, and we were proud to represent our city.
We wanted to thank our great coach, Peter Adler, the tennis pro here at the Rec Center, for training and preparing us for these competitions. Tennis is fun, and we are lucky to have a great coach. We would like to thank the Temple Terrace City leadership for providing the wonderful tennis facilities here and allowing the tennis program here to thrive. The city's tennis program is making a positive and lasting impact on kids and families. That's a photo of us in Orlando, and thank you, and go Titans!
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Is it okay if we get a picture?
Yes.
Is that all right? No. Congratulations. Second place. Wonderful.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Congratulations. That was unexpected. Yeah, great. You guys come back anytime you want. Okay, so next we have David Pogorlich, and while he's working his way up, let me make sure I'm doing my math correct. You come on up there, Mr. Pogorlich. I have 1, 2, 3 people who have ceded time to Tara McDaniel. You're ceding time to Mr. Pogorlich. Bill Snelling. You're ceding time to Mr. Pogorlich, and Roger Littlejohn. You're ceding time. Okay, my math is correct. You have 6 minutes.
I won't need that much. Thank
Okay,
you.
if the clerk could set the timer for 6 minutes. Oh, not 30 minutes, 6.
I can go.
No offense.
I'm going to keep it.
Okay, here we go. All yours, Mr. Pogorlich. Welcome.
Thank you. David Pogorlich, 1534 North River Hills Drive. So we are here, and I do mean we. There are some people here that are here just because of this. We're here tonight to let you know that while we support you, and we support the fact that you have to make a big commitment to be here, and there are, your dedication is certainly appreciated. We believe that you maybe have lost your focus, and you need to get back to moving our city forward and focus on issues. I know you've received some emails from some others that specifically address other things, so I'm going to keep tonight's comments more general with some suggestions. The first suggestion is respect our dedicated employees. Members of this council, as well as other past councils, have done a phenomenal job of recruiting dedicated, intelligent, professional individuals in every department in the city. And we now have the best and the brightest, and we need to show them some support. Listen to what they have to say and respect their decisions. In that same vein, respect the people that are standing where I'm standing right now, whether it's a citizen, a developer, a consultant, or a guest. Treat them with respect. Don't treat them as adversaries, and don't give them hostile, what's the word I'm looking for? Cross-examination while we're standing up here. Respect each other, try to work together. The Diaz is not a place for grandstanding. The Diaz is not a place for look at me. The Diaz is not a gotcha moment event, and the Diaz is certainly not a platform for narcissism. Please focus on the people, focus on the issues that move us forward, and remember that council is a we job, not a me job. Thank you.
Mr. Gorlich. I don't currently have any further requests to speak at this portion of the meeting. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council at this time? I have a couple of people signed up to speak on a later agenda item, but nobody else for this portion. Okay. Very well, then we will move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Go ahead.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Consent agenda is adopted. Next, we have a resolution approving Phase 1 of the Riverside Park project, and our Leisure Services Director, Carl Langfeld, who's having a very good night so far, is here to explain. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Thank you all. I'm here tonight, this evening, requesting City Council adopt a resolution approving Phase 1 of the Riverside Park project and directing Half and Associates to move forward with permitting and contract bidding for the project. At a council workshop held on January 8th, 2026, representatives from Half and Associates provided an update on the project. During the workshop, a consensus was reached on specifics for the first phase of construction. Including in the agenda is a map of the park showing what Phase 1 will consist of. For clarity, the items indicated in red on this map, Brian, can we get that on the screen? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Brian. For clarity, items highlighted in red on this graphic are not included in Phase 1 of the project. Also included in the agenda materials is an opinion of probable cost prepared by Half and Associates. Phase 1 costs are expected to be approximately $3.4 million. Please note that this cost estimate includes over $950,000 in contingencies. I stand for any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Langfeld. Council member questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez.
This is really a question about the funding for this project, because I know that there are frequently comments about why would we fund this and not other things? And can you speak to where this funding is coming from and why we are using this on this project versus other infrastructure?
Mr. Ingram, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bulk of this is unassigned fund balance. Am I correct with that?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's $3 million from unassigned fund balance. This was programmed. So if council recalls, we've had a pattern here over the last several fiscal years of basically using unassigned fund balance as a way to pay for capital projects. It's a savings. So if we have savings throughout the year, that goes into unassigned fund balance, and you go through that budget cycle. When we did the budget workshops, this would be a couple of fiscal years ago, we had a conversation about this project and how we would fund that. And so you collectively, the council, agreed to use unassigned fund balance for the bulk of it. We also put in a prior fiscal year $400,000 from TIF funds for the CRA. This is an allowable CRA expenditure. And then this fiscal year put an additional $400,000 in there. So we have $3.8 million available for this initiative for the park. What Mr. Langfield noted is that the costs, can you remind everybody what the cost for phase one would be again?
It'd be 3.442, $693.25 to get it down to the penny. But again, this is just the contractor's opinion of probable cost, so it may vary depending on how the bid documents come back.
Thank you.
Other questions, council members? Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approving the phase one, resolution approving phase one of the Riverside Park project.
Second.
Motion seconded by Councilmember Fernandez. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Resolution's adopted. Thank you, Mr. Lingfield. Next is a second public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1589, amending the capital improvements section objectives and policy of the city's comprehensive plan. I'll open the public hearing, and the Community Development Deputy Director Marissa Robinson will explain.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Marissa Robinson with Community Development. This is the second public reading and public hearing for CPA 2501, amending the capital improvement section of the comprehensive plan. The first reading was presented by Katrina Cochran from the Planning Commission. This item is initiated by the Planning Commission to comply with state statute. The proposed updates will remove the language for the city's 15-year multimodal transportation program, including the annual loss of service report and the concurrency management report. There is an additional policy, CAP policy 1.1.10, which does allow us to continue with the 15-year multimodal transportation program if we choose. The Planning Commission found this change consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, are there questions? No questions? If there are no questions, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan, Capital Improvements Section Objectives and Policy, providing severability, providing for correction of typographical errors, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve on second public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1589, amending the capital improvements section objectives and policy of the city's comprehensive plan.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? No nays. The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you. Next is a second public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1590, amending the Planned Development Zoning District at Wood Stork Plaza otherwise known as RZP-25-02. I'll open the public hearing, and our city planner, Joe Moreta, is here to explain. Good evening, Ms. Moreta.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Joe Moreta, Community Development. As the mayor mentioned, this is for a rezoning 2502. Before I get into the presentation, I would like to take care of a clerical issue. We're introducing a substitute ordinance to rectify a minor error. The word Tampa is contained in the title block and also in the body of the ordinance prior to Telecom Drive. So it says Tampa Telecom Drive instead of Telecom Drive. So that ordinance should be getting passed around, and the word Tampa is going to be eliminated from the title block and from the also from the body of the ordinance.
Mr. Moreta, are there any other changes to the ordinance on second reading?
No, sir. No, sir. Just those two words in those two locations. I'll let Linda pass that out, and then we can get moving. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're ready to get moving. This parcel is located on Woodstork Plaza near Telecom Drive and Fletcher Avenue. It's on the southeast corner of Telecom Drive and Fletcher. The affected parcels are 2.31 acres. The total planned development, which is this is a part of, is 7.8 acres. The PD modification proposes an additional 5,722 square feet. The uses will remain the same, and they are retail, medical office, and restaurant. This will amend the total of the planned development from 29,000 to 34,722 square feet. If you look at the slide, you can see an area outlined. That's the change area of the site. Moving on, when this site was transmitted for review, Environmental Planning Commission commented because there was some concerns previously about the property to the south. That area has been fully mitigated. It's actually approved for development and will not require any other type of mitigation. So that area is already spoken for. Even though it's not proposed for development, it's already been fully mitigated in a previous mitigation plan. Moving on beyond that, the Planning Commission has reviewed this and found it to be consistent with the city's long-range comprehensive plan. In terms of staff findings, just to reiterate from the last hearing, our Development Review Committee supports the approval of the modification. The modification in use is compatible with the surrounding uses. There's no change in use, it's only in the amount of use. The DRI standards, Development of Regional Impact, and the site engineering requirements will offset any additional transportation impacts. The DRI deals with the network transportation impacts. They've already been dealt with through the DRI. There is a site plan that was approved for 79,500 square feet several years ago. If the trip generation for the 79,500 square feet is exceeded, then Hillsborough County will need to review that for potential access management improvements, and that will be reviewed at site engineering. The city staff agrees with the Planning Commission and the staff findings in regard to the consistency of the comprehensive plan. We are recommending approval of this, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moreta. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Is the applicant here, Mr.
Yes, he
Moreta?
is.
Would they like to speak? It's voluntary. Good. Okay. Okay, council members, are there questions?
No.
Okay. There are no questions. I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, approving a zoning reclassification amendment for two planned development parcels totaling 2.3 acres plus or minus of property consisting of two folios, 199,554.0732 and 199,554.0734, generally located at the southeast corner of Telecom Drive and Fletcher Avenue, for RZP 25-02, providing for amendment of the official zoning atlas map of the city, providing for severability, providing for correction of typographical errors, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1590, amending the planned development zoning district of Woodstock Plaza, RZP 25-02.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you, Mr. Moretti.
Thank you. Good evening.
Next, we move into council business, and the first, well, really, the first or maybe only, I'm not sure, no. First item is the selection of a vice mayor. The vice mayor position is filled on a progressive rotation by seniority. Council members who have served a minimum of 2 years are eligible to serve as vice mayor. In the absence of the mayor, the vice mayor shall take the chair at the appointed meeting hour and immediately call the members to order per Resolution 96-88M. Pursuant to Rule 6 of the Council Rules and Order of Procedure, council members should select a vice mayor for a one-year term of office. And I will open the floor for nominations for our next vice mayor. Yes, Vice Mayor,
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Chambers for vice mayor for next year.
do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Are there other nominations? Okay, if there are no other nominations, I'll close the nominations. Is there a motion to approve Councilmember Chambers?
Move to approve the appointment of Councilmember Chambers as the vice mayor for the current calendar year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
You get to park 6 feet closer.
Wow.
Yeah. Next are the mayor appointments. The mayor is responsible for annually appointing the city council members to serve as representatives of the city on various county boards and state committees and to city boards and committees. I have not made any changes to this. I think everybody's doing a very good job on all of their board assignments, and if there are requests from the dais to make changes, we can have a discussion. It's not just my decision, but does anybody propose any changes? If not, it's the status quo. Is there a motion to approve the status quo appointments?
Move to approve the appointments as listed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Is there any other council business?
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
I wanted to ask about our sign ordinance and if that's something that we could consider revisiting to maybe make it more clear, to give it some clarity, but also to make sure that what we do have in the ordinance is consistently enforceable. I know that there've been a lot of changes over the years to the ordinance to address one issue or another at one time, and it seems like maybe, given the fact that we have very strong First Amendment rights in the country, and we can't obviously overrule any of those, but at the same time, we want to make sure that our signs are consistent with the neighborhoods or what the community wants. For one, so as suggestion, making sure that we're very clear about what's not allowed, basically, in signage, so that it's easy for staff to know if somebody complains about a sign, if it is in fact something that the city staff, code enforcement, or somebody else can actually take action on, but just so it's very clear, but also potentially looking at 56th Street and Bullard and some of our other areas to get some kind of consistent signage structural standards that you might see in other communities. One of the complaints that we hear all the time about 56th Street from people that don't venture off 56th Street into the deeper community is that it looks very suburban sprawl shopping center kind of, so it's just a thought that I have, and it's something I might obviously also bring up at council goal setting, but I wanted to bring that up now to see if there was any interest in any discussion about it.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I would agree. I think the last time we really looked hard at the ordinances was 2016, I believe was the last time. And, you know, we go through, I think the terminology is presentism, so that what was good then is not necessarily good now, and so forth. So I would ask the administration to take a look at it and come back to us with any, you know, changes, particularly with First Amendment type issues, and you know, at a future date, so that we could look at it with any changes they might recommend.
Could we, I don't know what your desire here is, the sign ordinance is long and thorny, right? Sign ordinances and noise ordinances are probably the two worst ordinances to deal with that we have. Is there specific portions of this that we're concerned about, as opposed to just telling them to look at the whole? I mean, that could take, that's a big undertaking. Are you?
Well, those two issues specifically.
Well, the commercial signs we talked about the corner lots and stuff. We had a discussion about that recently.
It's not that. It's more of an overriding style of how we allow our signage to, I don't want to say be placed, but if you go into certain communities, if you go down maybe into West Palm or Palm Beach, or they have a very strict style of where you're allowed to place signs, or how you're allowed, or how high they're allowed to be, in an effort to look less of a suburban shopping center sprawl that people have complained about 56th Street before. So I get that's one of my concerns. And then the other area is to make it very, very simple for residents to understand specifically what's allowed for them in their yards signage, and to make it easy for city staff to say, you know, right away, this is allowed. By really, I mean, we would say what's not allowed, because most things are allowed under the First Amendment. But I just feel like in recent comments that have come before City Council, there's been consternation about some of the signage that is in people's yards that is protected speech. But if we were more clear about what is not protected or allowed as public signage, that would maybe help everybody answer that question and city staff to deal with it. So those are the two areas that, for me.
Travis, anything?
Sure. I think that a consistent application of the rules is always critical. And I know in this particular instance, there are rules on the books which the city administration has some difficulties enforcing. So if we can align the rules that we have on the books with our actual behavior, that's always going to be something that I support. I've supported that in the past on other matters. I think it's critical that people are able to look in our statutes if they're interested and have an actual clear understanding of what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, or if they're getting permits, what they're required to do for the permit. And when we have a situation where there are informal rules that are created not based on a proper legislative process, but on discretion, that's always going to be something that rubs me the wrong way, because discretion has its place, but people need to be able to look at the law and understand what's expected of them and what isn't. And I think this is a situation where it's very clear that people cannot do that. So I'd love to see something along those lines move forward. I'd love to see a motion where we ask city staff to look into this and maybe come back with some guidance after they've spoken, for example, to Mr. Shanks from Code Enforcement, who's doing an excellent job, and he can go and develop some form of a standard for our consideration, and then if we like it, we can approve it. If we don't, we can send it back for revision. I think that would be a very good move. And I also welcome that on any other areas of our ordinances, and there are others where we're not doing what the ordinance says. So that's what I have to say on that.
Councilmember Chambers?
Sure. So first on commercial, you know, that one's a little bit more tricky. We could put some new rules in place if we choose to tighten that up maybe, but I can't see us making all the business people now change their signs. So it would have to be progressively down the road as businesses change. We can look at that. Yard signs, I think we have an issue with yard signs, and I think we need to look at that part. I also think we need to shorten the time frame for political signs during campaigns to go out. I know we shortened it, Councilman Schuster, you remember, we shortened it once.
90 days before the election.
Right, I think we need to shorten it again. Political signs go up in yards way too long, and, you know, just my opinion, so.
Vice Mayor, anything else?
No, that's good.
So I would fully support and agree with my colleagues' remarks on the issue that we have with the really unenforceable ordinance we have concerning yard signs, snipe signs, yard signs. But I am not supportive of directing staff to go back and revisit all the, I mean, the commercial signage, we've been over that probably 3 times since I've been on council. It's a good ordinance. It's already more restrictive than most cities. If you drive Fowler Avenue, you can tell when you leave Temple Terrace and go into Tampa just by the signs. That is a really burdensome task that we're asking them to do. Now, if there's a particular area, like we've already asked them to look at the signs, the portion doing with the corner lots that don't allow them to have this, we've already addressed that. So if there's a particular thing, but to have them go look at that whole, that's a lengthy, sticky ordinance when it comes to how many square feet and how the lighting is and how it's corner lots and side lots and what if there's this, what if, that's no easy task. So I would happily support, enthusiastically support the revisit of the snipe sign or the yard signs. But I just don't think we're fully appreciating what we're asking of them if we're gonna ask them to do a wholesale revision of the commercial signs, which we have done. So I guess I would just try to persuade you to narrow that a little bit and maybe look through it yourself if there's something that you see in the commercial sign or, you know, like, well, can we look at that? But, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry. I agree. I'm not talking commercial signs. I mean, what we got's what we got out there on Fowler Avenue, 56th Street and so forth. You're not going to get it. You're not going to be able to get it to take it down and redo it. But I'm talking strictly yard signs and that type of situation. But you know, we would ask administration to come back to us. You got a lot of things going on. I don't want to pig pile on with something new. We got a lot of other issues that are going to be coming. But put it on your radar so that we can come back in a few months, 6 months, whatever, with some recommendations. Because this is not something that's going to be done overnight. You'll find out all the intricacies and issues with the yard signs. It's going to take a lot of time to pull that together. So I would like to see administration come back with that, more focused on the yard signs than just a general review.
I think you got a lot of traction on the yard signs. If you want to narrow it to that, I think everybody would like you to make that motion.
Do we need a motion or do we need consensus?
Well, we used to not do motions, but now we do, so.
Okay, so then I will make a motion that we ask city staff to revisit the sign ordinance with regard to yard signs and snipe signs.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays? Okay, we are still under council business. Is there any other carryover council business? Councilmember Kravitz.
I do have one question, if I could direct it to city manager. We voted some time ago for a virtual PFAS town hall, and I was curious if there's any update on when we can expect that to be executed on.
Sure. As I think we've mentioned a couple of times, so the goal is we're working to get the report from CHA, a final report, presented to the council, and then subsequent to that, we've scheduled, I actually suggested doing another in-person town hall, as well as having a concurrent virtual town hall via Zoom. So that hasn't changed, so we're waiting on the report to be finalized.
That's excellent. So when would we expect potentially to have the additional in-person town hall?
After being presented to council, as I mentioned to the council before, right now we are looking at, I think we gave the council a date of by June at the latest, we would have this information. I think we're going to get it earlier than that point. Earlier would help us also from a budgetary perspective, because if we're talking about including it as part of the rate, we'd like to get that information the sooner the better. So as soon as we have the information, we can analyze it, process it, present you with a report that includes a financial analysis. Then I would, if the council's obviously at their discretion, have a town hall explain everything to the community and have it simultaneously broadcast virtually.
Is there anything we could do today to make it so that the in-person town hall can happen without any further difficulties from your perspective?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand what the further difficulties are, the question.
You suggested that we had to take action on it. Should I make a motion to go ahead and proceed with that in-person town hall?
If you're asking me, my suggestion would be to wait till you actually had the report and the analysis of that before moving on the town hall. I think that seems to be, that would not be my recommendation, doing it that way, but again, it's up to the council.
All right, well, I look forward to the report then. Thank you. That's all I have.
Is there other council business? Okay, we'll move on to new business and board reports. First item under consideration for new business is a follow-up to a meeting that the council had a workshop at 5 p.m. to discuss the proposed public safety complex. Mr. City Manager, do you have a elevator version of that presentation?
Sure. So as the mayor mentioned, at 5 o'clock, we discussed a public safety complex where we discussed a number of things. City acquired property in 2024 for a future police station. In looking at that property, the size of it's 5 acres. It would accommodate both a police station and a future fire station, which has been talked about in this community for several years, particularly as our community grows to the east and we're annexing more property. The response times that we've identified in that eastern part of our community are slower than our benchmarks for the entire city. So our benchmark for the entire city is 6 minutes and 40 seconds for a response from the time you dial 911 before a paramedic arrives at your property. On the eastern part of the community, we're seeing in the 90th percentile range, we're seeing response times that are 8 minutes and 29 seconds on average. And that is predicted, to deteriorate even further over time as more development happens out there. We're seeing new warehouse development, new retail development, also some new residential. So the conversation earlier was, do we want to build a fire station simultaneously with the police station? And it would make sense to build the fire station from a cost perspective alone at the same time, because you have the contractor mobilizing once on the site. And also you wouldn't disrupt police operations once they're in the building, et cetera. So that was presented to the city council along with the cost for that. Let me just pull it up here. So the police station, so right now our police department is operating in the same footprint that they have been operating from since the late 70s. And our police department in the late 70s, early 80s was much smaller than it is today, and it served the community was much smaller than it is today. This community has talked about having its own police station, freestanding station, to accommodate the growth, as well as to accommodate all the needs for evidence. If you can imagine just evidence, we were a community of 11,000 when the police station was first moved into this facility. Today we're a community of 28,000. Just the evidence retention area alone is busting at the seams here in this facility. So looking at that, we hired an architect to do some conceptual planning and cost estimating. So right now we have the estimated cost for a new police station, 33,000 square foot facility. It's $34.6 million. This is on the high end of the range. I'm giving you the most conservative numbers. Fire Station 3 would be projected to be a 10,000 square foot facility, two-bay fire station at $10.7 million. Obviously, when you do, this is not a cash transaction, this would be a debt instrument. So if we were to do, for example, the general obligation bond, there is underwriting, bond counsel, credit agency reporting, et cetera, that also has a component of the cost, and that would be roughly 1% to 2% of that total. In talking with bond counsel and our financial advisor, they recommend to also have a cushion in your bond if you do go out to the voters for a general obligation bond, because it's going to take us 1 to 2 years between the time of a vote and the time you actually break ground. And there could be inflation, there could be other things that make that price go up from where it is today. So we were talking about a suggested general obligation bond amount not to exceed 50 million. So for example, if everything shakes out and it's 40 million, that would be the number, but the not to exceed amount would be, again, providing that cushion. Looking at the options, the general obligation bond would be the best option in our estimation, my estimation at least, put it that way, because it would provide us more transparency, because the voters would be voting exactly on what they want to financially support. So it's not buried in any budget. You're going to very clearly see that you'd be voting to say you support building a police station and a fire station for that amount of money. It would be a recommended 30-year bond. Right now, the interest rates are hovering between 4 and 4.75%, somewhere in that ballpark. That would be a millage rate right now, based on today's valuations, of between 0.9 and 0.98. So you're looking at, if you had a home assessed at $250,000, the projected financial impact would be $225 to $245 annually to support that bond cost. This evening, what we were asking the City Council is authorization, if they want us to move forward. Do you want to include a police and fire station? Does the council also wish us to do a general obligation bond for the financing of this? And then which ballot, which ballot would we place the question on? So there's 3 options for the ballot. You could do a primary ballot, which would be the primary elections August 18th of this year. You could do the general ballot in November 3rd, or you could do a special election sometime in 2027, but there would be costs to hold a special election. I think that's roughly the synopsis.
Thank you, City Manager. Are there members of the public? I do have a couple people that want to comment on this already, but if you have just heard that and decided you'd like to make some public comments, the forms are right there on the little table in the back, so you can fill them out, give them to the city clerk, and we'll be happy to take you in order. So the first person recognized is Sherry Donahue. Good evening, Ms. Donahue.
Boy, this is quite an occasion. You've had 2 former city council people here. Thank you to each of you who are serving. So, it's not often that you actually live a slogan or a motto or whatever. But the new slogan that we're working on, we've given up on amazing city. We've already found out that we are an amazing city, correct? So now what is it? It's what's next, okay? Listening to that workshop today, I want to give you just tremendous kudos on that workshop. All the dots were over the I's and all the T's were crossed. You laid it out beautifully. I wish everyone could see this workshop, and hopefully it will be on YouTube and people can watch it. Because watching the planning that has already been gone through, watching the way the plan is laid out, all the way from when to build it, what to build, all of those things are amazing. But what also strikes to every heart is the time it takes. I can tell you that I am a beneficiary of a lot less than 8 minutes, and that less than 8 minutes made the difference between me celebrating another Christmas with my son and planning a funeral last month. So, if somebody says time is of the essence, that is all in capital letters. So I heard what you said in the workshop, and I hope you'll all stick to it, because it sounds to me like we're going to be breaking ground on a dual police and fire station in our future. And I want to commend you for thinking about what's next. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Alec Hassey. Good evening, Mr. Hassey.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Alec Hassey, Wesley Chapel, Florida, Vice President of the Temple Terrace Professional Firefighters. I just want to say on behalf of our members, we're all very, very appreciative of the work that you guys have done planning the future Fire Station 3 in the public safety complex. Echoing what Ms. Donahue said, a lot of work goes into this, a lot of data, and it was all presented very, very well. And you know, this fire station has been a topic for almost 25 years. So this was identified nearly 25 years ago in the strategic planning process. So to see it come to fruition with this council, I mean, I think you guys need to give yourselves a pat on the back, because we wouldn't have made it here without you guys. So we just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hassey. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council? Okay, council members, are there questions that remain from the workshop?
I don't have any questions.
Vice Mayor.
I have no questions, but when you're ready for a motion.
Okay, well, let's make sure there aren't any questions that remain. Okay, Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
It's my pleasure to make a motion to proceed with all due diligence on the combined project of the new police station and the new firehouse, number 3, on the assigned property on Harney Road, to seek a GO, a general obligation bond in the amount of about $50 million as described, and do this during the primary election in August. I think it's August 17th of this year, 18th, August of this year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion.
I have comments.
Councilmember Fernandez.
One, I do hope that you all watched the workshop that preceded this meeting. It was filmed and it should run on YouTube, and that might help if you have any questions. But I'll tell you why I support the motion, and that is any annexation, any growth in the city will be that direction. So at some point, if we follow the plans that the city has initiated in years past, that's where the growth will be, and we will be putting a third station sooner, probably sooner than what we might think, even though we might think, well, we don't have that growth today. It takes a lot of time to plan this and actually implement the construction, and that we'd like to not be caught behind the 8 ball. We're trying to plan for the future. Construction costs are a fairly known dollar today, closer than, not perfect, but closer. And we know that they're only increasing, which means that even if we delayed this project for 3 years, we might be looking at a 50% increase in construction costs.
I don't think it works like that.
And we also know that it's, when you're doing a major construction project, that it's less expensive overall for the site work to do this in one combined project versus coming back and having to restart at a later date. And we know that the accreditation of the fire department is very important to all of our citizens, and it's important
with the money becoming available to buy the property. And
Right. And this is really just for the record, because there might be some people tuning in now who didn't watch the workshop. The voters have a decision to make in the primary ballot, and I encourage them to give it some serious thought. This is a big ask. It's a lot of money. But there is a cost either way. If we don't vote for this, it is likely that Temple Terrace will prospectively lose its Class 1 rating. The Class 1 rating is critical for everybody's homeowner's insurance. If we go to a Class 2 rating, the homeowner's insurance will increase. And so you have a cost either way. You have to have the bond, or everyone has to be willing to pay more in their homeowner's insurance, most likely down the line, for worse service from the fire department. And the fire department is willing to give the good service, and I know they will, but we have to support them. And so this is not a tax increase today, and it is not a tax increase if you vote for it, but you will see a line item every year for the repayment of this bond. And what it will be will depend on your property taxes to some degree, because it depends on the value of your house. But it isn't the same as property tax. The money that you pay only goes toward the fire and police station. It does not go to the general fund. It cannot be spent in broad strokes. So I just want to encourage everyone to give it serious thought. There's going to be a lead up to this. There's going to be a lot of public information, and that's very important. And I'm fully in favor of that, and I'll be pushing for that so that we can give voters all of the information that they need in order to make a fully informed decision on the primary ballot. And I'll probably be out there myself talking to people about this as well, and hopefully with some of the people from the fire department. And I think we should go out into the community, and we need to get everybody the information that they need, and then everyone can make up their own mind, because that's what it's all about. And other than that, I don't have anything else to say. So thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you. That's a good point. There's likely a cost either way, so that's a very good point to keep in mind. Councilmember Chambers, any comments?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays? Yes. That's a big step. Sure.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I just wanted to say a few things. Number one, I want to thank the city manager. He asked the hard questions over the last couple of years on why this is a fire station and why we needed to move a rescue over there and potentially down the road staff a fire engine. And I want to thank my assistant fire chief, who I leaned upon to give me those stats and that information. I've got a rock star of a staff. The firefighters and paramedics that I represent are second to none. I want to thank this council. I appreciate your support of not only me, my staff, but our firefighters. But the real beneficiary of this and the real winners of this is the community and the 28,000 residents that we serve and the visitors that visit our city every single day. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Are there other new business or board reports? Other new business or board reports? I've got a couple quick things. I apologize for not being at the last meeting. It was unavoidable, but I wish I had. I just don't want to belabor, beat the horse to death. But it's been brought up here a couple of times that we've been violating our own council rules. Like Rule 18D doesn't talk about the use of the form, and we're requiring people by custom to use the form, but it's nowhere in our rules. In fact, that statement is actually now enshrined in approved minutes to a meeting. It's correct that 18D does not address the use of the form. However, 18G right below it does. And paragraph G says members of the public will have an opportunity to be heard on all agenda items coming before the city council prior to city council action. Persons wishing to be heard should complete a written request to be heard form provided by the city clerk and present the form to the clerk. And then later in the same paragraph G, it talks about donating your time to another speaker like they did for Mr. Pogorlich, and it talks about use of form provided by the city clerk to designate in writing a representative. So it's twice mentioned in paragraph G, and then if you go to Rule 25 concerning public hearings, it's the same thing. It says person wishing to be heard should complete a written request to be heard on a form provided by the city clerk and present the form to the clerk. And then it goes into the second time it mentions it is donating your time to another person, and it says through the use of a form provided by. So the minutes that you approved. True, I mean, 18D doesn't have it, but it doesn't say that in the minutes. It just says, we only do this by custom. Well, that's not true. Here's the city council rules. And the other comment I wanted to make about the last meeting that again, I'm sorry I was absent for unavoidably, there was discussion about the need to have a permit to build or install a shed in your yard. There was discussion, and then it was recommended to the council member that he bring it up at the goal-setting meeting. So two things I want to say about that is, one, we already had this discussion on February the 27th at a land use workshop we had where we talked about sheds, side yard uses, commercial vehicles, microbreweries, trees, commercial signs on corner lots, accessory dwelling units, and historic buildings. We had this meeting and we gave staff direction that they've been working on. In fact, some of these revisions that we directed them to make are at the Planning Commission now to get approved. So one of those things is the sign permits. And the other point I'd like to make is the council member correctly responded to the suggestion by saying, I thought the goal setting was a budget planning meeting, which is absolutely correct. He's 100% right. That's the goal setting is for the budget. It's not a land use workshop. And to embed a land use workshop in a budget meeting is wrong. It needs to be publicly noticed as a land use workshop so the public knows if it wants to attend. We don't embed it in a budget meeting, and so people don't know we're going to be talking about land use issues. So I don't know what you guys want to do. I mean, if you want to reverse the guidance that we've already given staff, you probably better do it soon, because some of it's at the Planning Commission being looked at now. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that land use workshops don't need to be conflated with budget planning workshops. And so, anyway, just to put it on the record, since that's what we do now. So, okay, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, in your backup this evening, you have the quarterly updates for the fiscal year 26 first quarter. So we have the budget and the council priority updates there. If you have any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? I just want to make a comment real quick. I know the work you're doing because I talk to you just about every day. I know what most of you guys are doing for the big stuff. But until you put it into one document like this and I go scrolling through it, and I'm like, holy cow, I forgot about that. I didn't know that we were doing that. I mean, when you put it in one document, I got to tell you, you guys are a bunch of rock stars. You really are, and so is the leadership. And so when I look at all the stuff that you're doing and all the irons you have in the fire, every department in here, I'm like, oh my gosh. And they still answer the phone. I mean, how do they do that? So really, to all of you, and Carlos, to you too, and the other charter officers too, I mean, both of you guys, you're just hitting it out of the park all the time, and so thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. Appreciate that. I'm sure that all of this in the report, all in the updates, this is the work that's done by the team. They put it together, so.
Mr. Chair, just.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Kravitz.
Thank you. I do have just one or two queries and compliment. So good job getting the golf course into full compliance with their loan. I know that's been a sticking point in the past. I'm glad it's working out well with them. That's wonderful. Really happy to see that. And the other question was relating to the Fowler Avenue sewer. I didn't see any reports in there. Is there any update on that?
Yes, so we are in discussions with outside legal counsel concerning the contractor that was terminated from the job. They're looking at right now at the different advantages or disadvantages in terms of the approach for that legal action. So I plan to come back to council as soon as I have definition on that. Right now, we're still in, I'd call it more than due diligence, but we're still trying to get some questions answered.
And second question is related to please correct me if I'm wrong. I saw an additional accountant position being open to deal with PFAS costs. Is that?
So what we've done, and I have to thank Mr. Warrenfeldt and Assistant City Manager and HR Director Nazario, is basically reconfigure some positions. If we have turnover, if we have attrition, we always look at positions. We don't just blindly allow it to be filled. We look at it again, if there's new needs that we have, and one of the new needs we had in Public Works and Engineering is really for in essence, an accountant 3 position over there. PFAS is part of it. There's just a lot going on right now in Public Works and Utilities that we felt that that was a skill set we needed to have there.
Okay, thank you. I hope it goes well. That's all. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Beal?
Okay, so if I could jump to one other thing. I know that in the last month particularly, we've had some significant water issues, particularly down in the area south of River Hills Drive, south of South River Hill Drive, which sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the peninsula here. And I just want to give the public an update and the council as to where we are with that. So if you'll recall, on December 30th, we had a break in a water main on West River Drive. That line is not in good shape, and in fact, we had a subsequent break about 2 weeks later, if I'm not mistaken. And so staff's been working to identify a solution there. We feel that that line is really doesn't have much life left in it. So the good fortune we have here is that there's actually a cast iron water main on the other side of West River Drive, on the south side, basically. And so we are looking right now to move the homes that are being serviced by the compromise line over to the other existing line. There's about 31 homes that are on this existing pipe. We have been in touch with 1 or 2 contractors. We're now getting pricing, and it looks like we'll probably be able to piggyback with a contractor that has a contract with another Central Florida community. And we're hoping to bring something to council within the next 2 meetings is my goal, to have a contract with you so that we can get that work done and get those folks moved off that line. Now, to move them off that line, what that will mean is that we're going to be basically going under the road, what they call it, the bullet, shooting the bullet under the road, making the connection under the road for each of those 31 homes. So we hope to get that work underway as soon as possible to get that line abandoned, basically. Also want to touch upon another question that's come up about sort of the lab protocol and the water shut off, because obviously when you have a water main break, you try everything possible to avoid shutting off the pressure to the system, because then you have to go into a precautionary boil water notice for 48 hours at minimum. And some of the issues we have is that the different labs that we use have different protocols in terms of some labs are really for weekdays, some labs are for weekends. And so we have tightened that up. We've learned several lessons in some of these water breaks over the last year. So we've improved that relationship. Our staff is much more aware now of which labs will work with us and which labs will stay open late so we can get the samples in. The reason that's important is because we want to make sure that we shorten that period for that precautionary boil water notice, because we know it's incredibly inconvenient and we don't want it to happen. The break that happened December 30th, unfortunately we had the New Year holiday there, and that's what threw off some of this because of the lab and us trying to get there with the holiday, and so that was a problem. So we've improved that, and we're going to continue working on that. Also want to touch upon this past weekend, we had 3, I believe it was, actually may have been 10 homes? Looking at Mr. Warrenfields. It was a small group of homes. 10 to 12 homes. So because of the cold weather, as I informed council, and everybody actually spoke to it, Mr. Loeb spoke to it early on, we had this cold snap. We don't typically have temperatures that are freezing or below freezing. And so we had to make sure that our infrastructure was protected. And in this particular neighborhood, again, down in the sort of south of River Hills area, we had a construction meter. So they were doing some work, so they had a construction meter, so they had basically an exposed pipe over ground that we realized would probably freeze. So staff went out to shut the water off to that meter. And in doing so, there were 2 valves. They turned the one valve off, and that valve unfortunately shut the water off in this area, but they caught that mistake within a matter of minutes. I think it was about 10 minutes, and they turned the water back on. But that happened, didn't result in a boil water notice at all for that, but it was an inconvenience. So we're working on training our staff in terms of, we don't have many of these construction meters, so this is not a typical thing you'd find. But I know one of the council members asked me, how did we find out about this? And I want to commend the council for supporting in our budgets for the last several years the iHydrant notification system. We've been phasing this in. That is a great system. So probably most of the people sitting right here on their phones have the app. And whenever we lose pressure in any of our hydrants, at least the hydrants that have the iHydrant function on it, that telemetry, it indicates immediately, it sends a text to our staff. So they're all aware that there's a drop in pressure somewhere, which is usually indicative of something happened. It could be a hydrant broke, it could be that a water main broke, et cetera. So they're able to respond very quickly. At the same time, again, I want to thank council for the See-Click Fix app that we have, because I know that residents also concurrently were sending notes to See-Click Fix, and that was going, Maria, our PIO, was monitoring that as well over the weekend, particularly in light of the weather. So between those two methodologies, we're able to respond very, very quickly and make sure that this doesn't become a bigger issue. So that was important. We have also been asked about how we have our utilities marked out and cataloged. And so our infrastructure, we have a fairly good idea of most of the city's infrastructure that's underground. The challenge that we have is the service lines, things like that, that might be privately installed. You would think over the years that there would be good records, but I'll be honest, every community that I've worked for, it's hit or miss. And so some places you'll have very good as-built records and other places you may not. So what we're trying to do with our staff is anytime we have any kind of interaction with our underground infrastructure or service lines, we document that, and we're adding that to our geographic information system. So trying to get that in as quickly as we can. We've mapped out a good portion of the city already, we feel comfortable with, but we still have a lot more to go. And I want to thank Councilmember Kravitz, actually, because he sent me a note a couple of weeks ago about Congresswoman Lee's office managed to secure funding for Hillsborough County precisely for this kind of initiative to map out their utility infrastructure. We had requests for Congresswoman Lee's office in the past. I've sent out emails now to her district chief here seeking to find out more information. So if there's an ability for us to get into a next round of funding for something like that, that's something we'd like to do. And then I also want to talk about, finally, in terms of staffing, we're going through several staffing changes right now. And like I mentioned before, every position that's open, we look at, is there a better way to do this? And so that includes in our utilities department too as well, trying to figure out how can we get more skill sets into the department. We've hired a new utilities maintenance manager that brings a wealth of experience. So we're hoping all these things bear fruit as we move forward to improve the utility system. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there other questions for City Manager? Councilmember Kravitz.
I just thank you for the thorough report, and also I know we're going into goal setting, which is when we develop our budget. So I just want to encourage you and the staff to think about what the needs are for our sewer system, because I think everyone would like to fund those, and perhaps there are some preventative things that haven't been explored because of cost. Perhaps there are repairs that have been pushed away that aren't absolutely critical yet. I think we should try to get ahead of that if it's at all possible. Certainly we have a lot of financial challenges going into the next 10 years, but delaying this is also one of those things that isn't going to be cheap. So my suggestion or request would be so that we can have a good discussion about this topic during goal setting, to explore that in the next coming months.
In fact, we're working on that already too. We have the capital plan for the water plant that's being developed right now. We'll be bringing that to you, the findings of it to you later in the year. It'll be part of the budget, and obviously on the sanitary sewer side, as you mentioned, we'll be looking at that as well.
Thank you. That's all.
Councilmember Fernandez.
So with regard to the inventory and the mapping that you're currently doing and planning to get the system documented, will you also be creating a time process or some sort of schedule that will tell us what maintenance needs to be done as part of your report? I mean, I wholeheartedly want us to talk about what needs to be done as we go into the future so that we can get the budget established or know what the needs are.
We will. So we'll be looking at as much as we know. So I want to make sure that I don't want to leave anybody with a misunderstanding. again, we haven't been able to map the entire city. That's a long process. That's not going to happen in a very short period of time unless we were able to secure some significant funding, outside funding, that would allow us to hire a third party to come in and map everything. And even then, it would probably take a year, I would imagine, to do. So we don't have all that mapped, but our goal would be what we know and what we're getting from our consultants' reports about our infrastructure, that we will bring that to council as part of your budgeting. Now, it may not be all in fiscal year '27, because obviously trying to do that all at 1 year will probably be nearly impossible. But we'll have a plan that'll go out over, several years, maybe 5 to 10 years, and show you these are the costs that we anticipate today. That doesn't mean we're going to capture everything. There may be something that we don't even know about right now that's underground that's going to come up and become an issue for us. But we're going to try and get ahead of most of the things that we know right now are going to be problems. But again, it will take time. It's not going to happen in just one budget cycle.
My only request is that a lot of the infrastructure is aging, and it's better to maintain or repair ahead of, some sort of break. So whatever information you're able to bring us as we're establishing the budget, even if I know we're not going to know everything, but that's all that I would request.
Mr. Mueller, City Attorney's report.
Thank you. Mayor, I have a couple of things. First, I'd like to the first thing will be my report on unanimous consent.
I object, excuse me. I'm sorry, this is improperly agendized because the city attorney's responsibility is to report on external matters. This is a item governing the city council's own management of its affairs, and it is a sovereign body. And as we saw with the mayor's chair ruling, which I strongly disagree with, from about 6 months ago, which removed our authority to put things on the agenda, it is our responsibility to make those decisions. It is not the city attorney's job to dictate whatever policy he thinks should apply to unanimous consent. So I would like to see this struck because it is not properly placed on the agenda. The city attorney has no agenda-setting authority.
Well, as the chair, I'm going to allow it because we pay for the city attorney to give us advice to make sure that we're compliant. And
I
this body,
object to that.
this body has full authority to make a motion to appeal the chair's decision, and by unanimous or by majority vote, you can overturn the chair's decision, and I welcome that. But right now, the chair's decision is to allow the attorney to do his job.
I object, and I would like a vote on that. I move that we strike this item from the agenda and move on with other matters that are more important.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? There's a motion. Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of second.
Let the record reflect that the city attorney wants to talk about unanimous consent and that I didn't want to talk about it.
Record so reflect that. Mr. Mueller, please continue.
All right, thank you. Actually, I was asked to bring this up by you, Mr. Kravitz.
That's not correct.
Anyhow, in the past few meetings, the use of unanimous consent has come up when voting on some motions. And I have expressed a little concern using unanimous consent, or for the city council to use unanimous consent when voting on certain items. And that's a reason for this. I want you to understand what that concern is. So, if I can. Unanimous consent is a parliamentary procedure that's found in Robert's Rules of Order, and Rule 24 of your rules points to Robert's rules when there is not a specific council rule governing a procedure. So basically, what is unanimous consent is found in Robert's rules, in Rules 458 through 460. Rule 458, which discusses and tells us what unanimous consent is. It's in cases where there seems to be no opposition in routine business or on questions of little importance, time can be saved by the procedure of unanimous consent. Under those conditions, the method of unanimous consent can be used either to adopt a motion without the steps of stating the question and putting the motion to a formal vote, or it can be used to take action without even the formality of a vote. So 458 tells us what unanimous consent is. Rule 459 tells us how this is to work. In cases where there is, oops, I'm sorry. So to obtain unanimous consent, the chair would state that if there's no objection, the action that he mentions will be taken. He then pauses, and if no member calls out, I object, or he will say that since there is no objection, the action is decided upon. If any member objects, the chair must state the question on the motion and allow the desired debate, and the question goes through our normal process, which would be a motion, a second, discussion, and then the vote. And then Rule 460 explains really what an objection to using unanimous consent means. When a member responds to the chair's inquiry, is there any objection, that person may not necessarily, and someone responds with I object, that person may not necessarily be opposing the motion itself, but may believe that it is wise to take a formal vote under the circumstances. In other words, the objection is raised not to the proposed action, but to the action being taken without a formal vote. So part of my concern about using this, Robert's Rules does not contemplate such factors as in Florida, the Sunshine Law. And under 286.012, it states that when a member of a municipal board at which an official action or ruling or other official act is to be taken, that they cannot abstain unless there's a possible conflict or they are to assure a fair proceeding, but they need to vote, and that vote shall be recorded or counted. And where my concern comes in is around the fact that using unanimous consent usually results in a silent vote. And I do not believe that silence can be recorded or counted. Therefore, I'm afraid that if we were to use unanimous consent, that we would run into a problem if we were having some sort of official action that you were voting on. So what is official action that I would be asking that we make sure we use a voice vote and not unanimous consent would be, of course, the approval and denial of a resolution, the approval and denial of an ordinance, the continuing or postponing of an agenda item to a future agenda, and a motion that you may make of taking official action. And I have up there as an example, if you were directing that speed humps be installed on a specific street, that would be an official action, and we would want to use an official vote. But if you were directing staff to investigate the need for a hump, that could be done using unanimous consent and has been done in the past by the city council. And I will tell you that if it's not clear whether we're dealing with an official act or not, I will be asking you to take a voice vote. And that is all that I have.
Councilmember Kravitz.
I had a lot prepared, but I'll just dispense with most of it and get to the core of this. Okay, so the city attorney said that Florida Sunshine Law has some sort of relevance here. Tampa uses unanimous consent on the regular. It operates under Robert's Rules of Order, just as we do. That is its parliamentary authority under their Rule 4J. The resolution in question from Tampa is 2024-520. Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, shall govern the proceedings, etc. Very familiar. Okay. Here's a citation from Tampa City Council, Thursday, September 19th, 2024, at 9 a.m. Member making motion, Council Member Lynn Hurtak. Presiding Officer, Council Chairman Guido Maniscalco. Council Attorney Martin Shelby. Here's the verbatim transcript at 9:58. Mr. Chair, do you want to make that a motion by unanimous consent? Lynn Hurtak. I motion to listen to item 70. Since they are here, a good efficient way of proceeding with this topic without objection. Any objection? This is Guido Maniscalco. By unanimous consent, hear item 70 now, etc. Planning Commission. So this is an example from Tampa City Council from 2024, which is, as far as I know, subject to the Sunshine Law, of unanimous consent being made by someone who is a member of Tampa City Council under the recommendation of Tampa City Attorney, which is recognized by the chair, and then passes. I've got another example. February 6, 2025, Councilmember Lynn Hurtak. Once again,
the culprit in the unanimous consent escapade. February 6, 2025 at 9 a.m. Same person requesting, same chair, verbatim transcript. I move items 18 through 21 and 23 through 34 by unanimous consent. Guido Maniscalco, the chair. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. If it's good enough for Tampa, I'm pretty sure it's good enough for our little city council here, which I love very much, and I'd just like to see it move things a little quicker with unanimous consent every now and then. Mr. City Attorney, your legal advice is fine and welcome, but when it comes to how we govern ourselves as a sovereign body, I really have to emphasize, even the mayor has much more authority than you. I really don't agree with his chair decision about how he has restricted the right to put things on the agenda, but everyone up here voted for it, and we accepted it. And unfortunately, I have to abide by it. And that is how this body sets its own rules, not based on you putting your thoughts into an agenda when you don't even track who's applicable under the Sunshine Law. And you didn't even look at Tampa, which is the largest, most applicable jurisdiction in Hillsborough County to this situation. And it's very disappointing. And I just want to say that this was a big waste of time. So thank you. And I have more. So if you want to go at it, I've got 8 other examples here, including authority from Robert's Rules of Order itself, 3 other municipalities in the United States, and 2 academic institutions with citations under how they interpret Robert's Rules of Order. So I got plenty of ammo if you want to go on this one.
Are there any other questions for the city attorney? Thank you very much, Mr. Mueller. Are there anything else in your report?
Yeah, one more thing. It's been brought to my attention that there was an incorrect vote notation in the November 4th, 2025 minutes. So I am noting for the record and that correction has been made, that the city clerk will be handing out the vote notation with that correction. And she can explain any further if you have any questions.
Thank you. We'll take a moment while she passes that out. I could tell another story about the Capitol if you want.
Please.
22 floors. You can see to Georgia from up there.
Oh, yeah, I guess you.
Or so they say. I don't know if what Georgia looks different from North Florida, but
You see snow.
is it coming, Madam Clerk? Here we go. Did you go up there? Oh, yes. Yeah. They say that's Georgia. I don't know. How do you know? Yeah.
Only half an hour away.
They say you can see the Gulf too, but I've never been able to see the Gulf. Just for the public who can't see this, this involved a resolution approving the purchase of 2 Thunder Creek fuel and lube trailers totaling $74,583.48 from Federal Contracts Company utilizing General Services Administration contract number GS03F-113DA. This is page 12 of our minutes from the November 4th, 2025 council meeting. At the end, the minutes incorrectly captured Councilmember Kravitz's vote as a nay, when in fact it was an aye and there were no nays. It was a unanimous vote. And so that's what we have,
Yes.
that's what we have done. It's a Scrivener's error, although a rather significant Scrivener's error, but that's the change that has been made, and I assume this will be attached to the minutes as a correction?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Has that been done?
Not to the official minutes that have been posted. This will be done as soon as we had brought it to your attention.
Okay. Could you just confirm with an email to us when you have done it so that we can all put it to rest and know that it's done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for the city attorney?
That's all I have.
Anything else, Mr. Mueller? Nothing else? Okay. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, if not, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.